As a way to get into what the EDRM does, what would the world look like for legal professionals if the EDRM didn't exist?
From my perspective, it would be what it was pre-EDRM, which was legal people on one side of the table, technical people on the other side of the table, and anybody else in between, and everybody would talk past each other. And they would use the same vocabulary words to mean different things. For example, custodian means, okay, yeah, the janitor, but it also means the custodian of records, or it could mean custodian in the IT security sense, just to level set and get a nice vocabulary as well as like a workflow. It's not a prescribed workflow, it's an iterative workflow, but the basic building blocks of the things that we always do inside an eDiscovery request and review and production, to be able to have that in a simple one-page form gave us the language to communicate. And I think we would be the Tower of Babel.
One thing we hear a lot about is the EDRM 2.0. So how did that get started and what's next?
The EDRM 2.0 got started because the EDRM has been around since 2005, and technology has evolved and our practice has evolved. And so how do we describe where we are inside of this? They would say, we don't quite fit it anymore. We've got an advancement here that maybe we can just tweak the EDRM model to include something that we've advanced. Or they take something out of order of what's displayed and they would prefer to see the order changed of things. So people started asking, and then generative AI came on the scene, and it was pretty clear that was going to be a radical reimagining of how we do our work. And so we chartered the 2.0 project to ask that question. What, if anything, we should change, not to change it for the sake of change in and of itself. And the last change we made was to incorporate the new IGRM diagram that did have a substantive change in the sense that it moved the segments into an equal setting so that legal didn't have the biggest part of the pie and IT the smallest part of the pie when you sat down to discuss. So I call that a substantive change for good. So that's what we're going to do with the EDRM 2.0 is we're going to look at it and see what changes need to be made, if any.
What is the timeline for that, Mary?
Probably about a year long. Should there be changes made, we'd want to give people enough time to have public comment. We know, like, your marketing department probably depends on it for the decks that you create. And so we don't want to surprise anybody with anything and give it enough timeline for people to be comfortable with it.
There's an EDRM project, as I understand, for electronically stored information, ESI protocols. What prompted that one, and what do we look forward to there?
The ESI protocols, now with so much electronic data, right? It's all electronic data. The courts are requiring ESI protocols. So right now, there's a lot of back and forth and fighting over the protocol between the two parties. And there's not really a standard protocol where plaintiffs and defendants could find a way to agree on most. So they only had a little bit that would need to be decided on or agreed upon. And that saves a ton of time and money for everyone.
You mentioned plaintiffs and defendants. I think one of the things you guys say is that you've got both sides of the V involved in your efforts. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, we had a project, the Privilege Log project, and protocol, yes. And when it got to consensus, it was realized that there wasn't significant plaintiff input into it. And so the team reconstituted themselves, opened up again, and made a concerted effort to involve the plaintiff bar and the requesting parties to come to the table and to create something that would be acceptable by both sides. And that's a test. That particular project, Kristen Traylor was the trustee on that. And that's a high octave of consensus to get opposing parties to come to an agreement. And so that's what that one was about.
That's good.
So we're aware there's an EDRM project focused on AI. Who's the champion there and what's next?
We're really excited about the generative AI project. It is being led by the illustrious Jerry Bui out of FTI. And what they're looking to do for what we would call version 1 is to create a set of guidelines for lawyers, legal professionals, anybody really, to help them incorporate it and know some of the high-level pitfalls, things to look for, and ways to utilize it. What am I missing, Mary?
That it's one of our most popular new projects, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone wants to learn about it, and everybody wants to help put some guidelines down.
Wow, that's great. I'm sure there's no shortage of people who want to be involved.